Viewers, before we dive in, drop your city and local time in the comments. Let's see just how far this little HOA drama is about to travel. Now picture this. Alex is on his porch, coffee steaming, sun barely cracking over the tree line, when he spots a thick, cream-colored envelope in his mailbox. It's got that embossed Whispering Pines HOA logo on the front, the kind of stationery that tries way too hard to be impressive, like a wedding invite for people who collect riding mowers. He opens it, and, get this, it's a formal notice accusing him of violating Covenant 7.4b for having an unkempt lawn and weed propagation. His wildflower garden, the one buzzing with bees and draped in native blooms, apparently doesn't fit their vision. Which would almost be funny, except his property isn't even in the HOA. Not a foot of it. Alex, being a GIS analyst, basically a digital cartographer, knows exactly where his land sits. He's spent decades stacking satellite imagery, legal plats, and boundary descriptions like a high-stakes game of digital Jenga. So he prints a screenshot straight from the county's own system, his parcel outlined in red, the HOA's boundary in bright blue, 200 feet apart, and sends it back with a polite note. You'd think that would be the end of it. But historians still argue whether ego or ignorance is harder to cure, because 2 weeks later, here comes letter number 2. Same fancy paper, but now with a new flavor of condescension, the Legacy Inclusion Clause. Sounds official, right? Like a rare artifact dug up from ancient HOA lore. Legally, worth about as much as a coffee loyalty punch card. The letter slaps him with $50 a day fines, retroactive. That's when the cold knot forms in his gut. This isn't a mistake anymore. It's deliberate. She's not just wrong. She's building a case on quicksand and daring him to sink. And in choosing him, a man whose day job is literally defining jurisdiction lines, she's just picked a fight in the one arena where he's untouchable. If Carolyn Beaumont, the HOA's self-anointed queen, thought she was enforcing order, she's about to find out what happens when you hand a master mapmaker the blueprint to your own downfall. The air is about to get tense, like before a summer storm, and Alex? He's already powering up his triple monitor command center. The triple screen glow turns Alex's quiet study into a war room. Maps unfurling, plats stacking, layers upon layers of data clicking into place. He's not just glancing at the county map anymore. He's digging into the DNA of Whispering Pines itself. The subdivision plat from 1987? Downloaded. The full CCRs, 84 pages of HOA scripture, cross-referenced against GPS survey markers. He's reading, thence north 89 degrees 14 minutes west, like bedtime poetry, tracing iron pins and stone corners that haven't moved since Reagan was in office. And tucked in that dusty text, he spots the seed of Carolyn's arrogance, a throwaway marketing line about including the old Miller place. Legally meaningless, but potent enough for someone who thrives on vague authority. Historians still argue whether developers write these things out of ambition or just bad typing. 3 days into his archaeological dig, he widens the scope. HOAs are nonprofit corporations, which means their finances and meeting minutes are public if they claim jurisdiction over you. So he files the request, half expecting a fight. Instead, a week later, a fat manila envelope lands on his desk. Either they're too confident or too lazy to imagine what a GIS analyst might do with it. What he does is brutal. A spreadsheet emerges, cross-matched with board meeting notes. A single law firm, Slate Associates, appears again and again, gobbling over 60% of the HOA's non-utility budget. Alex maps every lawsuit Whispering Pines has filed in 5 years, 12 in total, each a pulsing red dot along the outer borders, like a rash on the community's skin. Inside the comfortable center where Carolyn and her hand-picked board live, not a single suit. It's a pattern so clean it could hang in an art gallery titled Predatory Litigation. The kicker comes from an insider, Arthur Finch, the retired surveyor who literally signed off on the original plat. Over coffee, Arthur confirms everything. The legacy clause is fluff, the plat is gospel, and Carolyn once forged a homeowner's signature. There's even a private censure letter floating somewhere out there. That's when Alex shifts from defense to offense. He finds his litigator, Julia Ray, a woman who chews on complex corporate malfeasance for breakfast. He walks her through his evidence, plats, budgets, lawsuit maps, and Arthur's allegations. Her verdict? They didn't just sue the wrong guy, they sued their worst possible nightmare. And with that, the countersuit is loaded. 2 weeks later, the clubhouse hums under harsh fluorescent lights, beige walls swallowing the energy of 50-some homeowners. Carolyn sits front row center, her loyalists tied around her like a self-appointed royal guard. Alex is in the back with David and Arthur, laptop at his feet, waiting for the open forum. The meeting drones, minutes read, treasurer's report sanitized, Carolyn delivering her sermon on community vigilance. You could almost smell the smug. Historians still argue whether she believed her own words or just liked the sound of her voice. When the floor opens, Alex stands. The projector hums to life, his satellite image splashing across the wall, clean, high resolution, undeniable. One click, the HOA's official blue boundary. Second click, his green property box, floating safely outside. A collective gasp, the kind that makes even the air feel heavier. This, he says evenly, is the official county plat. Your lawsuit has no jurisdiction. Carolyn tries to bark back, but he rolls into the next slide. A map of 12 glowing red dots hugging the community's borders, the predatory pattern impossible to miss. Then comes the flowchart. Arrows from her discretionary fund to Slate Associates, straight into lawsuits. The insurance rep in the corner starts flipping pages like he's reading the end of a mystery novel he already hates. And then, the kill shot. Arthur stands, his voice ringing. I was the chief surveyor. Alex is right. And yes, Carolyn forged a signature years ago. There's a letter of censure to prove it. The room erupts. Questions fly. How much money? Who knew? Mr. Slate, the lawyer, quietly packs up. Carolyn's allies stare at the floor. A motion freezes her fund. Another demands her resignation. She storms out, red-eyed, pushing through a wall of neighbors who now look at her like they've just seen the wizard's curtain pulled back. In the weeks that follow, the board caves, lawsuit dropped, legal fees paid, a 5-figure settlement for Alex's counterclaim. Carolyn resigns, her house on the market within a month. An audit uncovers even more rot. Payments to her nephew for landscaping never done, personal expenses hidden under consultation. The DA takes interest. Arthur and David join the new board. Reforms roll out. The legacy clause is struck forever, and the HOA shifts from petty tyranny to actual governance. And in the gentle quiet that follows, Alex's wildflower meadow blooms higher than ever, bees drifting in the summer light. Neighbors wave. Some stop to ask how to start their own gardens. He knows now, it wasn't just about winning. It was about setting a boundary no one could ever cross again. The months that followed carried a kind of stillness Alex hadn't felt since moving onto those 5 acres. Yet it wasn't the solitude he'd first imagined. This was a stillness born from resolution, from the way tension slowly drains when you know no one's peering over the fence with a clipboard and a petty rulebook. Mornings felt lighter. The gravel road to his gate seemed to stretch a little easier under the tires. And when he walked the meadow paths, the rustle of tall grass felt like a quiet applause. The settlement money sat in his account, more than enough to cover every sleepless night and every hour spent cross-referencing plats and budgets. But rather than let it gather dust, he carved out a portion for something small yet purposeful, a fund to help other homeowners fight back when the weight of a bigger, louder opponent threatened to drown them out. Maybe most people would never need it, but the knowledge that it existed felt like planting a hedge along the edge of someone else's peace. Every so often, Arthur or David would stop by, coffee mugs in hand, to share updates on the new board's work, budget transparency, genuine maintenance projects, a neighborhood barbecue being planned without a single word about lawn height or mailbox color. Alex would listen, smile, and think of that first cream-colored letter, now tucked in a file like an old weather map marking the start of a storm long since past. And in the soft close of those conversations, with the bees still tracing lazy arcs in the warm air, he'd feel the truth settle deep. Sometimes the map doesn't just show where you are, it shows exactly where you stand. And standing there, firmly, can be enough to change everything.